Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. The moment you stop explaining your worth, everything changes. This video isn't about fixing them. It's about finally choosing you. Sometimes the hardest thing is simply noticing the pattern in how people treat you. It's easy to make excuses, to tell yourself it's a one-time thing or that maybe you misunderstood. But when the same behavior keeps repeating, it's not about misunderstanding, it's information. Every dismissive comment, every time your time or effort is ignored is a clue. Your instinct might be to doubt yourself, to wonder if you're being too sensitive, or to ask, am I overreacting? That's the voice of self-doubt creeping in. The truth is, consistent disregard isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their inability to see it. And the most courageous thing you can do is acknowledge it without trying to justify it away. Stop explaining, stop rationalizing, and start observing. When you do this, you start seeing the reality of the situation clearly. You realize that what you tolerate, even quietly, teaches people how to treat you. Every time you lower your boundaries to make someone else comfortable, you are unintentionally signaling that it's okay to overlook your needs. Awareness is not about blame, it's about clarity, and clarity is the first step toward reclaiming your power. Take a moment to notice the patterns in your relationships. Write them down if you have to. See the repeated behaviors for what they are, and most importantly, remind yourself that noticing them does not make you harsh, it makes you honest with yourself, and that is the beginning of freedom. There is a subtle, almost silent weight that comes when someone doesn't value you the way you wish they would. It's not always dramatic. Often it's a quiet, persistent ache, the kind that lingers in the corners of your mind and whispers doubts you wish weren't there. You try to brush it off, telling yourself that perhaps they are just busy, distracted, or going through something. But beneath that rational voice, a deeper, quieter pain begins to stir, a sense that maybe, just maybe, you aren't enough. That feeling is powerful because it reaches past simple disappointment and touches something more primal, something we carry from early experiences, long before we even knew how to articulate it, the fear of being unseen, unworthy, or replaceable. At first, we often confuse this pain with rejection. We say, they don't see me, and we carry it as a badge of inadequacy. The mind, ever vigilant, starts to replay every interaction, every gesture, every word. It asks, did I say too much? Did I give too little? Should I have been different? You search desperately for patterns, for reasons, for a way to rewrite the past into something that would make sense. And in that search, the ache grows because no matter how hard you try, no external validation can fully fill the gap left by the lack of recognition. It is a pain that cannot be negotiated with words or actions alone. The challenge is that we tend to internalize it. We think the hurt means we are lacking, that the absence of their appreciation is proof of our insufficiency. But the truth is far gentler and far more liberating. The fact that someone fails to recognize your worth does not define your value. Their inability to see you, to acknowledge your presence, to honor your contribution, reflects their own limitations, not yours. It is not a verdict on who you are. It is simply information about the reality you are navigating, a truth that is often painful to admit, but one that holds the key to freedom. Allowing yourself to feel the hurt is the first step toward reclaiming your power. This is where most people falter, because our culture has taught us to either suppress pain or to weaponize it. We are told to move on quickly, to not dwell, to toughen up. And so we push the discomfort down, we plaster on a smile, and we pretend that we are unshakable. But unacknowledged pain does not vanish. It mutates. It seeps into other corners of life, eroding confidence, dulling joy, and feeding self-doubt in subtle, persistent ways. To feel it fully without shame or judgment is an act of courage. It is an acknowledgement that what you are experiencing is real, that your emotions are valid, and that your heart matters. To let yourself hurt without attaching a narrative of personal deficiency is a radical, almost revolutionary act. Sitting with pain requires honesty. It requires naming the feelings that have been lurking in the shadows of your mind. Maybe you feel sadness, a dull ache in your chest that no conversation can soothe. Maybe there is anger, sharp and restless, because you recognize the injustice of being unseen. Maybe there is disappointment, a soft, nagging awareness that what you hoped for from this person or these people will never arrive. Whatever it is, you must allow yourself to identify it without immediately seeking to fix it. This is the difference between feeling and wallowing. Feeling is acknowledgement, wallowing is judgment. One brings clarity, the other confusion. It is essential to understand that experiencing this hurt does not make you weak. On the contrary, it is evidence of your depth and your humanity. The heart that feels deeply is also the heart capable of immense resilience. To permit yourself to feel the sting of being undervalued is to cultivate a profound inner strength that cannot be measured by external recognition. There is a transformative power in recognizing that pain and worth are not mutually exclusive. You can hurt and you can still know your value. You can ache and you can still hold your head high. The paradox is beautiful. The more fully you embrace your pain, the more unshakable your self-worth becomes. Reflection is a vital part of this process. Ask yourself questions not to assign blame, but to illuminate truth. What patterns emerge in the way others treat you? Are there recurring situations where your efforts, time, or presence are minimized or dismissed? How does that make you feel and why? These reflections are not exercises in self-criticism. They are tools for insight. They help you distinguish between your intrinsic value and the fleeting, inconsistent judgments of others. And in doing so, you start to develop a map, a guide that leads away from self-doubt and towards self-understanding. One of the most profound realizations you can have during this journey is that hurt is not inherently harmful. It is the response to hurt, the stories we tell ourselves about it, that determines its impact. If you tell yourself that being undervalued means you are insufficient, pain becomes poison. If instead you tell yourself that being undervalued is a reflection of someone else's limitations, pain becomes a teacher. It illuminates boundaries, exposes mismatched energy, and clarifies what deserves your time and devotion. The difference lies in perspective. One path shrinks you, the other empowers you. Practical steps to navigate this emotional terrain are simple, but they require consistency. Begin by giving your emotions space. Journal, meditate, or simply sit quietly with your thoughts. Name each feeling as it arises: sadness, disappointment, frustration, loneliness, and acknowledge it without judgment. Next, practice separating your worth from external validation. Remind yourself daily that your value is inherent, not contingent on recognition. Repeat it until it resonates. I am enough, regardless of how others see me. Over time, these affirmations reinforce the truth that your value is constant, even when external acknowledgement is absent. Another practical step is to establish emotional boundaries. You do not need to justify your feelings to anyone, nor do you need to bend yourself to fit into someone else's perception of you. Protect your energy by limiting exposure to those who consistently fail to recognize your worth. This is not an act of punishment. It is an act of preservation. By consciously choosing where to invest your emotional energy, you create a safe space for yourself. One where your feelings are honored and your worth is acknowledged, at least by the person who matters most, you. Forgiveness is another nuanced part of this process, though it is often misunderstood. Forgiveness is not about excusing the behavior of others, nor is it about minimizing your hurt. It is about freeing yourself from the heavy anchor of resentment. When you forgive, you acknowledge that the other person acted from their limitations, not from a reflection of your value. You release the grip of anger and hurt, not for them, but for yourself. It is a conscious decision to reclaim your emotional equilibrium, to step out from the shadow of pain, and to walk forward with clarity. Over time, allowing yourself to feel the hurt without judgment or shame cultivates resilience. You begin to notice that the moments which once felt like rejections become lessons in discernment. You learn to recognize who and what truly deserves your energy and who or what does not. You develop a quiet confidence, a sense of self that is unshaken by external inconsistency. You realize that you are not diminished by the inability of others to see your worth. You are strengthened by your willingness to feel, to reflect, and to rise above it. This journey also nurtures empathy. As you understand the pain of being undervalued, you begin to recognize it in others. You can respond with compassion, not only to those who have hurt you, but to those who struggle to see value in themselves. This empathy does not make you vulnerable to further hurt. It equips you with perspective, patience, and the ability to engage with the world more consciously. Feeling your own pain deeply allows you to approach relationships with wisdom rather than fear or defensiveness. The process of letting yourself hurt without internalizing it as a statement of inadequacy is transformative, because it reconnects you with your authentic self. In allowing your feelings to exist, you honor the truth of your experience. You acknowledge that your emotional life is valid and that your heart matters. This self-recognition is the foundation of self-worth, the bedrock upon which all other growth is built. It is the quiet internal realization that no matter how others respond or fail to respond, your presence in the world is meaningful, valuable, and worthy of respect. Eventually, this practice leads to liberation. The ache that once defined your interactions with undervaluing people becomes a teacher rather than a tormentor. You no longer chase validation or approval. You no longer hinge your sense of self on the recognition of others. You can engage with the world from a place of grounded confidence, knowing that your worth is inherent and your value undeniable. Hurt becomes a guide, revealing not weakness, but the contours of your courage, the boundaries of your heart, and the strength of your soul. To let yourself hurt without letting it define you is an act of bravery that transforms not only how you see yourself, but how you navigate every relationship. It is the moment you stop shrinking to fit someone else's perception and start expanding into the fullness of who you are. It is the moment you realize that pain is not a verdict, but a mirror, reflecting back to you the unshakable truth. Your worth is yours to claim, your heart is yours to honor, and your life is yours to live fully, regardless of who fails to recognize it. Choosing self-respect over being liked is one of the quietest, most radical acts of courage you can practice. It is not loud or showy. It does not announce itself with dramatic gestures or fiery speeches. Instead, it is a steady internal decision to honor your own dignity, your own worth above the fleeting approval of others. For so long, many of us have been taught that being liked, being accepted is synonymous with being valuable. We measure our worth through the eyes of those around us, adjusting, bending, and reshaping ourselves to fit the mold of expectation. And in the process, we lose touch with the core of who we are. We exchange authenticity for acceptance, compromise for belonging, and in doing so, we quietly sacrifice pieces of our soul. The inner struggle this choice addresses is deep and often hidden. There is a persistent fear of loss, losing friendships, opportunities, affection, or social standing. There is the fear of conflict, of rocking the boat, of creating tension that might push people away. There is even the fear of loneliness, of standing alone with no one to validate our choices. It is tempting to prioritize being liked over being respected because the cost of disapproval feels high. But the truth is far more liberating. The cost of ignoring your own worth is far greater. Every time you suppress your truth, every time you smile through the discomfort of being unseen or unheard, a part of your spirit shrinks. Your energy diminishes. Your confidence falters. Your life becomes a careful negotiation with the expectations of others rather than an authentic expression of yourself. Choosing self-respect requires a confrontation with these fears. It demands that you examine your relationships and ask yourself brutally honest questions. Are the people around you celebrating your presence or merely tolerating it? Are they willing to honor your boundaries or do they push past them for their own convenience? Are you bending yourself to fit into someone else's vision of who you should be, rather than embracing the fullness of who you are? These questions are not meant to incite anger or bitterness. They are meant to awaken awareness. Awareness is the soil from which courage grows. And courage is the only force capable of reclaiming your dignity when it has been compromised by others' inability to value you. The key insight here is that boundaries are not punishment. They are protection. They are not statements of hostility. They are declarations of respect for yourself. To set a boundary is to say, this is what I will accept. This is what I will not. It is a recognition that your time, your energy, your emotions, and your presence are not infinite resources to be taken without consideration. When you honor your boundaries, you are teaching others how to treat you, yes, but more importantly, you are teaching yourself that you are worthy of honor. Every boundary you assert reinforces your sense of self, strengthens your confidence, and builds resilience against the tides of disrespect that inevitably arise in life. There is an intimate and often painful truth to accept. Not everyone will like this version of you. Some will resent your refusal to bend, to accommodate, to fit into the patterns they are comfortable with. Some will feel threatened by the clarity with which you honor yourself because it forces them to examine their own behavior, their own inability to value others fully. But this is not a reason to retreat or apologize. Discomfort from others is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself. Your duty is to live a life that is authentic, that reflects your values, that honors your worth, even when it invites disagreement or disappointment. Choosing self-respect over being liked is not an act of defiance against the world. It is an act of fidelity to your own soul. One of the most profound consequences of this choice is the liberation it brings. The moment you stop bending to the whims of others, you experience a subtle yet profound shift. You notice that your energy is no longer drained by attempts to please or appease. You feel lighter because your actions are aligned with your values, not with the expectations of others. You notice clarity in your relationships. You begin to see who truly values you and who does not. And in that clarity, you discover freedom. Freedom to invest in people and pursuits that honor. Freedom to say no without guilt. Freedom to stand alone if necessary without feeling diminished. Respecting yourself becomes an internal compass, guiding every decision, every interaction, every choice of where to place your attention and care. The journey to self-respect is not instantaneous. It is gradual, deliberate, and often uncomfortable. It requires repeated practice the same way a muscle is strengthened through consistent exercise. At first, asserting your needs or holding firm on boundaries may feel awkward, even scary. You may anticipate backlash, rejection, or criticism. You may feel the familiar tug of anxiety urging you to retreat to the comfort of approval seeking, but each time you choose self-respect, the act becomes slightly easier. The internal voice of courage grows stronger and the voice of fear diminishes. Confidence replaces anxiety, peace replaces doubt, and your sense of worth becomes rooted not in the approval of others, but in the unwavering recognition of your own value. Practical actions to embody this choice are deceptively simple, yet deeply transformative. Begin by noticing situations where you compromise your values to gain acceptance. Reflect on why you do it, what fear is motivating your behavior. Then take small, deliberate steps to assert yourself. Speak your truth gently but firmly. Say no when it aligns with your boundaries. Stop over-explaining or over-apologizing for choices that are aligned with your integrity. Over time, these actions build a pattern of self-respect that is unmistakable, both to you and to those around you. The more consistently you choose yourself, the less you rely on external validation and the more resilient you become to disappointment or disregard. An essential component of this practice is self-compassion. Choosing self-respect does not mean you must be rigid or unyielding in every circumstance. Life is nuanced, relationships are complex, and compromise is sometimes necessary. But the key difference lies in intention and awareness. Compromise, born from empathy, mutual respect, or collaboration, is an act of generosity. Compromise born from fear of rejection or desire to be liked is self-erasure. Recognizing the difference requires mindfulness and honesty, but it is an essential skill in cultivating lasting self-respect. There is also a quiet strength in patience. Respecting yourself is not about immediate transformation or sudden dramatic changes. It is about cumulative, deliberate choices made over time. Each moment you choose to honor yourself, you reinforce a standard that gradually reshapes the way you experience relationships, work, and life itself. You will encounter resistance, both internal and external. You will face moments where fear, doubt, or old patterns whisper that being liked is safer, easier, or more acceptable. But each time you return to the practice of self-respect, you strengthen the foundation of your identity, creating a life that is grounded, authentic, and resilient. Choosing self-respect over being liked also teaches a subtle, profound lesson about authenticity. You learn that you do not need to shrink, disguise, or dilute yourself to be acceptable. You do not need to perform a role, mold your words, or censor your feelings to fit someone else's expectations. You discover that the people who truly belong in your life are those who accept you as you are, who honor your boundaries, and who value your presence. The rest become distant background noise, no longer capable of diminishing your sense of worth. In this way, self-respect becomes a filter, a protective mechanism that ensures your energy is invested wisely, your heart is treated with care, and your life aligns with the values you hold most dear. Ultimately, the act of choosing self-respect over being liked is an act of love for yourself. It is the moment you stop negotiating your value for comfort, approval, or acceptance. It is the moment you recognize that your dignity is non-negotiable, that your presence is worthy of recognition, and that your life is too precious to be spent shrinking in order to please others. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to honor yourself in the face of fear. Each choice to prioritize self-respect is a small but profound declaration. I see my worth. I honor my heart. I will not compromise my integrity to fit someone else's perception. This choice is not easy, and it is not without cost. Some people will resist it, challenge it, or try to convince you to return to old patterns. But the cost of not choosing it, the quiet erosion of confidence, the accumulation of resentment, the subtle self-doubt, is far greater. Self-respect is not a reward, it is a necessity. It is the foundation upon which courage, peace, and growth are built. The moment you fully embrace it, you step into a life that is authentic, empowered, and deeply aligned with the truth of who you are. You are no longer asking for permission to be yourself. You are no longer shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. You are standing firmly, unwaveringly, and courageously in your own worth. Silence is one of the most misunderstood responses in life. Many people believe that if you care, you must speak, argue, explain, or defend yourself. They think that quietness is weakness, that stepping back means giving up, that choosing not to engage signals indifference. But silence is not a void, it is a presence. It is a deliberate act of clarity, a statement that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Choosing silence when someone does not value you is not about avoidance, nor is it about passive aggression. It is a conscious decision to conserve your energy, to protect your peace, and to stop feeding a dynamic that diminishes your worth. There is a freedom in this choice, a liberation that comes when you recognize that you do not need to justify, explain, or defend yourself to those incapable of understanding or respecting you. The inner struggle here is profound and often invisible. The mind wants resolution, closure, and validation. When someone dismisses you, ignores your boundaries, or devalues your efforts, it is natural to feel the urge to speak, to clarify, to prove your point. There is a quiet voice that says, if they only knew, they would see how much I matter. And yet, in the pursuit of this external acknowledgement, you risk losing yourself. You risk entering a cycle of over-explaining, apologizing, and attempting to manufacture recognition that may never come. This is exhausting, and it erodes confidence more than the initial disregard ever could. Silence, by contrast, is a reclamation of power. It allows you to step out of the endless loop of validation seeking into the stillness of self-assurance. When you practice silence in the face of undervaluation, you begin to notice patterns that were previously hidden by the noise of explanation. You see who consistently respects your boundaries and who does not. You observe the difference between those who engage with you with integrity and those who attempt to manipulate, dismiss, or control through guilt or expectation. This clarity is invaluable because it transforms your perception of the relationship. What once felt personal is revealed as situational, and what once seemed like a reflection of your worth is understood as a reflection of someone else's capacity or limitations. Silence becomes a lens through which truth emerges. There is an emotional depth to this choice that requires courage. Choosing silence does not eliminate the pain of being undervalued. It simply allows you to experience it without amplifying it through reactive behavior. You give yourself permission to process your feelings without the compulsion to convince others of their validity. You allow the hurt to exist without turning it into a weapon, without using it to provoke guilt or force acknowledgement. This is difficult because human nature often drives us to seek immediate resolution, to fill empty spaces with words, to demand recognition as a form of justice. Silence asks you to wait, to breathe, and to trust that your value does not need to be argued for. It simply is. Practically speaking, silence is not about ignoring reality or suppressing your voice forever. It is about choosing the moments when speaking aligns with your values and boundaries, and refraining when it does not. It is about recognizing that not every battle requires engagement, and not every slight requires a response. You begin to distinguish between situations that warrant clarification and those that only serve to drain your energy. Over time, this discernment becomes intuitive. You learn to respond selectively, reserving your voice for contexts that matter and releasing it in contexts that do not. In doing so, you protect your emotional resources and prevent yourself from being consumed by the actions and opinions of others. There is also a transformative psychological effect to embracing silence. When you stop over-explaining, you shift the focus from external validation to internal clarity. You start to see your own thoughts, feelings, and actions as sufficient without requiring acknowledgement from others. This fosters self-trust, the understanding that you can navigate life's challenges with integrity and wisdom without needing someone else to confirm your decisions. A confidence that emerges from this practice is quiet but unshakable. It does not seek applause. It does not crave recognition. It simply exists as a steady foundation of self-respect. Another profound aspect of this choice is the cultivation of patience. Silence forces you to accept that not all conflicts or misunderstandings can be immediately resolved. It teaches you that peace is not always found in speaking first, arguing best, or explaining most persuasively. Sometimes peace is found in stepping back, observing, and letting time reveal truth. By embracing this approach, you align yourself with a deeper rhythm of life, one in which energy is invested purposefully, emotions are honored, and responses are measured. The temporary discomfort of waiting is outweighed by the lasting benefits of clarity, dignity, and self-respect. Silence also transforms relationships in subtle but powerful ways. When others notice that your energy cannot be commanded through manipulation, guilt, or persistent persuasion, they either adjust their behavior to respect you or gradually fade from influence. In both cases, silence acts as a filter. It allows only genuine reciprocal connections to remain while protecting you from draining dynamics. Over time, you develop a sense of relational intelligence, a keen ability to discern where your presence is valued and where it is not. This discernment is a direct consequence of practicing silence. It sharpens your perception and deepens your understanding of human behavior. Emotionally, silence provides a sanctuary. It allows you to process hurt without letting it define your identity or dictate your actions. You create space to feel sadness, disappointment, or frustration without letting those feelings consume your sense of self. In that space, you reconnect with your own inner voice, your own values, and your own truth. You learn to rely on your judgment rather than seeking constant external affirmation. This is an essential step in cultivating resilience, because resilience is not about avoiding hurt. It is about developing the capacity to face it, process it, and continue to move forward with integrity. Choosing silence also fosters wisdom. You begin to see that not every reaction, not every opinion, and not every criticism deserves engagement. You recognize that some people's inability to value you is a reflection of their limitations, not your worth. This understanding reduces the emotional turbulence caused by attempts to prove yourself. You start to understand that your energy is precious, and investing it in trying to change others' perceptions is rarely productive. The insight gained from this realization is profound. Your peace is far more valuable than winning someone else's acknowledgement, and your dignity is more enduring than fleeting recognition. Ultimately, silence is an act of empowerment. It is a statement that you are choosing your own emotional well-being over the need to control or influence someone else. It is the decision to step out of the exhausting cycle of validation seeking and into a space of self-assurance and integrity. It is the understanding that you do not need closure from those incapable of providing it, that your worth is inherent, and that your life can be lived fully without constant external confirmation. Silence is not a resignation. It is a conscious alignment with self-respect, clarity, and inner strength. By embracing silence, you also model a powerful lesson for others that respect cannot be demanded, only commanded by your consistency, boundaries, and integrity. People begin to recognize, consciously or unconsciously, that your presence is not negotiable, that your energy is not disposable, and that your worth is inherent. Silence communicates more than words ever could. It communicates strength, self-awareness, and unwavering dignity. Those who truly matter will respond to it. Those who do not will reveal themselves. In both cases, silence serves as a mirror, reflecting back to you the reality of the relationships around you and your own capacity for strength and discernment. In the end, choosing silence is about reclaiming yourself. It is about realizing that your emotional life is yours to manage, your boundaries are yours to enforce, and your value is yours to recognize. It is the moment you stop negotiating your peace for someone else's approval. It is the practice of stepping back, observing, and allowing truth to unfold without forcing it. It is about moving through life with calm. Confidence, knowing that your worth is inherent, your dignity is intact, and your heart is aligned with your values. Silence becomes a sanctuary, a teacher, and a shield, a subtle, quiet force that preserves your energy, honors your feelings, and strengthens your spirit. Through silence, you do not shrink or hide, you rise, fully present, fully aware, and fully grounded in the unwavering truth of your own worth. Growth is often subtle, almost imperceptible at first. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare, and it rarely arrives in the form of a sudden revelation. Instead, it unfolds quietly in the small choices you make each day, in the ways you respond to hurt, disappointment, or disregard. Growth is the moment when you stop seeking approval, when the voices of judgment and expectation no longer dictate your sense of self, and when you begin to invest in environments, relationships, and experiences that reflect and honor your inherent worth. It is not about changing who you are to be liked or accepted. It is about becoming fully aligned with your truth, letting your character, values, and self-respect guide every action. True growth is internal, invisible to the outside world, yet profoundly transformative in the way it shapes your life. The inner struggle growth addresses is complex. It confronts the fear of being alone, the anxiety of stepping away from familiar but unfulfilling relationships, and the discomfort of creating distance from people or patterns that have defined your emotional landscape for years. It challenges the tendency to cling to what is familiar, even when it is harmful, and requires the courage to choose what nurtures your spirit instead of what merely satisfies expectation. Growth asks you to move beyond the immediate pain of loss, disappointment, or being undervalued and into a space where your choices are guided by clarity, self-respect, and the recognition that your life is too precious to spend shrinking to fit someone else's narrative. One of the most profound realizations in this stage is that the process of walking away, letting go, or creating distance is not a sign of weakness or abandonment. It is a declaration of peace. A statement that you are committed to cultivating an inner life that is stable, resilient, and aligned with your values. Walking away does not mean you are rejecting people outright. It means you are rejecting the patterns, dynamics, or behaviors that have kept you in cycles of hurt or self-doubt. There is a deep, liberating wisdom in understanding that protecting your energy and prioritizing your growth is not selfish. It is necessary. It is the foundation upon which lasting resilience and authentic happiness are built. Growth also transforms the way you experience pain. What once felt like a relentless burden becomes a teacher, revealing insights about yourself, your boundaries, and your capacity for love, compassion, and discernment. You learn to observe your emotional reactions without being consumed by them. You begin to understand that hurt does not define you, that rejection does not diminish your worth, and that the inability of others to recognize your value is a reflection of them, not you. Each experience of being undervalued becomes a stepping stone, a subtle guide pointing you toward relationships, environments, and decisions that are in harmony with your integrity and your self-respect. In this way, pain is transformed into clarity, clarity into wisdom, and wisdom into the courage to shape your life intentionally. Another profound aspect of growth is the emergence of patience and perspective. You begin to recognize that life does not always move according to your expectations, that people may fail to meet your standards, and that validation is often delayed or absent altogether. Yet by anchoring yourself in your values and self-worth, you navigate these realities with grace. You no longer chase recognition or attempt to manufacture approval. Instead, you invest your energy where it is welcomed and reciprocated. Over time, this discipline fosters a deep sense of peace, a quiet confidence that your life is guided by principle, not reaction, and that your choices are deliberate rather than reactive. Growth is as much about learning where not to invest your energy as it is about knowing where to direct it. The journey toward growth also strengthens your sense of self-reliance. You realize that you do not need others to validate your worth or confirm your choices. Your internal compass becomes your guide, and your decisions are informed by self-respect and clarity rather than the expectations or approval of others. This self-reliance is not isolation. It is empowerment. It equips you to engage in relationships, work, and life with integrity and authenticity. You become less vulnerable to manipulation, disappointment, or external pressures, and more capable of standing firmly in your truth. In this space, your growth is evident not in accolades or external recognition, but in the steadiness of your presence, the clarity of your decisions, and the peace that accompanies alignment with your values. Practical steps to cultivate this growth are rooted in self-awareness, intentionality, and reflection. Begin by evaluating the environments and relationships in your life. Ask yourself where your energy is invested and whether it is reciprocated, honored, and valued. Consider what patterns or dynamics have kept you trapped in cycles of hurt or self-doubt, and make deliberate choices to shift away from them. Establish boundaries that protect your peace and nurture your growth. Invest in activities, pursuits, and relationships that challenge you to rise rather than diminish your confidence or sense of self. Over time, these small, consistent decisions accumulate, shaping a life that reflects authenticity, resilience, and self-respect. Growth also requires a radical acceptance of your own imperfections. You must recognize that you will make mistakes, falter, and encounter setbacks along the way. Yet these moments do not diminish your progress. They are opportunities for learning, reflection, and adaptation. True growth is not linear. It is cyclical, iterative, and dynamic. It asks you to be patient with yourself, to extend the same compassion inward that you would offer to a loved one, and to trust that each step, even the difficult ones, contributes to your evolution. By embracing imperfection as part of the journey, you cultivate resilience, humility, and a profound appreciation for your own strength. An essential element of growth is the ability to embrace solitude without fear. Being alone does not equate to being unloved or unworthy. In fact, solitude is often the crucible in which self-respect, clarity, and confidence are forged. It is in these quiet moments that you come to understand yourself, identify your values, and nurture your inner life. Solitude allows reflection without distraction, self-compassion without comparison, and introspection without judgment. When you embrace this space, you realize that your presence in your own life is sufficient, that you do not need constant affirmation from others to validate your worth, and that peace is an internal, self-sustained state, not dependent on external circumstances. Growth also deepens empathy and understanding. As you learn to honor yourself and navigate relationships with clarity and boundaries, you develop a more nuanced appreciation for the complexities of human behavior. You recognize that everyone has limitations and that the inability of others to value or honor you often stems from their own struggles, insecurities, or lack of awareness. This perspective allows you to respond with compassion rather than resentment, to engage with others from a place of understanding rather than reaction, and to invest in relationships that are reciprocal and nurturing. Growth is thus not only a personal evolution, but a relational one, shaping how you connect, communicate, and influence the world around you. Ultimately, growth culminates in a profound sense of peace and empowerment. You become the person who walks away from situations, relationships, and environments that no longer serve you, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of calm clarity. You understand that leaving behind those who do not value you is not rejection, it is preservation. It is the conscious decision to protect your energy, honor your worth, and invest your life in spaces that reflect and reinforce your value. You carry yourself with dignity, confidence, and resilience, unshaken by the inability of others to see your worth. In this state, growth is visible not in loud gestures or declarations, but in the quiet, steady strength of your presence, the measured choices you make, and the peace that emanates from alignment with your own truth. The final realization of this journey is that growth is a lifelong practice. It is not an achievement or a destination. It is a continuous evolution. Each experience, each challenge, each encounter with undervaluation or adversity becomes an opportunity to deepen your self-awareness, strengthen your boundaries, and expand your capacity for courage, resilience, and authenticity. Growth is the path that leads you from hurt to healing, from fear to courage, from seeking validation to claiming your inherent worth. It is the culmination of awareness, vulnerability, courage, and clarity, a transformation that allows you to walk through life fully present, fully grounded, and fully aligned with the truth of who you are. When you embrace growth in this way, you no longer depend on the recognition, approval, or validation of others to define your experience. You understand that your worth is inherent, that your value cannot be diminished by external disregard, and that your life is too precious to be spent shrinking, apologizing, or compromising your integrity. Growth becomes both your shield and your guide. It allows you to navigate life with confidence, resilience, and clarity, to invest in what truly matters, and to walk away from what does not, carrying peace in your heart and strength in your soul. Through growth, you transform not only how you experience the world, but how the world experiences you. You become the person who walks away with peace, who stands unwavering in self-respect, and who lives a life aligned with truth, dignity, and authentic power.